Alright guys, today we have more PlayStation news and rumors to go over and talk about. We have a few different interesting topics we're going to be covering today, so before we get into them, do me a big favor and hit that like button to help this video out and show it your support. And we are on the road to 100,000 subscribers here on the channel. So if you are new and you want to help contribute to that, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well. But we're starting here with a very interesting PlayStation 5 rumor. This is reading from Push Square, and it says another major PS5 exclusive Final Fantasy game will be announced at E3. So the article reads, Square Enix has another Final Fantasy game in development exclusively for PlayStation 5, according to a fresh rumor that's already being picked up all over the internet. This is in addition to all of the Final Fantasy projects currently announced, such as Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, and we assume Final Fantasy VII Remake 2. This rumor stems from Navtra, a Reset-era insider with a seemingly accurate track record. Navtra previously predicted most of the main reveals for Sony's first PS5 showcase, including the fact that Final Fantasy XVI would be announced as an exclusive. Navtra writes, I believe you can expect at least one major Final Fantasy announcement in addition to updates on the currently announced stuff. The post goes on to say that it'll be a good E3 season for Square Enix overall. We don't always recommend buying into uncorroborated rumors like this. Even real insiders can be dealing in outdated reports, but there is reason to believe that Navtra has access to reliable information. If this thing turns out to be true, then we'll obviously know for sure. I believe we are getting two major Square Enix reveals this June, a PS5 exclusive Final Fantasy title and a cross-gen Eidos title, Navtra concludes. So what could this be? Use of the word major suggests that it's a big deal, but knowing Square Enix, it could be anything. Another remake of a Final Fantasy classic seems unlikely, seeing as 7 is still in the works. Maybe something like a Crisis Core remake would make more sense. But again, the Japanese publisher is often difficult to predict. So a lot of really interesting information here. We have to first acknowledge that this is a rumor, so we cannot walk away from this assuming it's 100% correct, or look at it as any type of confirmation, but it is worth noting that this individual from Reset Era has a reliable track record, specifically when it comes to Final Fantasy, and they are claiming that Sony and Square Enix have struck yet another deal for another major PS5 exclusive Final Fantasy game. Honestly, it sounds very believable, but again, we are going to have to wait for official confirmation. Now, as this article states, it's pretty much anyone's guess what this Final Fantasy game could be, but I will say it is very interesting to me, not the fact that we're getting another PlayStation 5 exclusive Final Fantasy, but just we're continuing to see that partnership and that relationship between Sony and Square Enix continue to strengthen more so with each passing month. I think that's something that's certainly worth paying attention to, because going forward, I mean, we're already seeing this, but it's going to continue to become even more prevalent. Sony is going to have to rely very heavily on their partnerships and their relationships that they have with these other major publishers. And it seems that Square Enix is a publisher that is fully on board with what Sony is doing with the PlayStation 5 this generation. So there you go. It's up to you whether or not you want to believe this. So let me know down in the comments below what you think about this rumor, whether or not you believe it, and what Final Fantasy game you think this could end up being. But we're moving on from that now and talking about another PlayStation 5 exclusive that was announced some time ago, and we haven't heard anything about this project since. The game is actually called, right now, Project Awakening, and it's a game that many people were very excited about when they saw it revealed. It looks like it has a ton of potential, and it definitely looked more like a next-gen game to some extent, visually anyway, when we first saw it. But again, we have not heard a single thing about this title, nor have we seen anything. And some people have been feeling a little bit worried that maybe the project ended up getting canceled. Now, I'm happy to report to everybody who maybe was worried about that, but that's actually not the case. The game is still very much in development. We have no idea how far along in development it is, or when we'll see it again, but this is reading from Gematsu, and they say, for anyone wondering what's up with Project Awakening, it's still in development. Cygames posted its September 2nd, 2020 Solistic Game Engine presentation from CEDEC 2020 on October 8th, 2020, which mentions Project Awakening. So yeah, we have pretty much official confirmation from the development team that this game is still being worked on and it's still a thing, which is definitely reassuring, because I can tell you, when I watched this trailer for Project Awakening, as I said, it looks like a game with a ton of potential, and it could very well end up being a next-gen only game, maybe just a PlayStation 5 only game. I remember reading about this game a while ago, and it really sounded like Cygames wanted to do something big with this title. Like, they really wanted to kind of push the boundaries to some extent with what they could do. And so if they do decide to make it PS5 only, who knows what they will be able to achieve. But I know that a lot of people are just very much happy to hear that this game is still a thing and it's still in development. So at this point, we're just going to have to continue to be patient and wait to hear more about it officially. Moving right along to the next topic, we are talking about Biomutant and how it apparently only runs at 1080p on the PlayStation 5 due to technical issues. Now, this is something that I've seen a lot of people talking about, and I've also been asked many times if I was going to cover this, and so yes, I am going to cover it, because I think that it's not as big of a deal as some people are making it sound, but we do have to acknowledge the problem for what it is. So this is reading from VGC, and it says THQ Nordic says it has deactivated native 4K support for Biomutant on the PlayStation 5 due to technical reasons. Instead, the game will run at 1080p, upscaled to 4K when played on PlayStation 5. In comparison, the Xbox One version of the game will run at 4K 60 frames per second with dynamic resolution on the Xbox Series X, and the Xbox Series S will run at 1440p 30 frames per second. A PS5 gameplay video published this week states that the option for native 4K on PlayStation 5 has been deactivated due to stability and performance-related reasons. In a further statement published on Twitter, THQ Nordic said, due to technical reasons, we deactivated native 4K on PS5 for the release version of the game. It added, neither are native current-gen versions, but the PS4/Xbox One version already performs better on current-gen due to the more powerful hardware. Native versions for current-gen are coming, but we can't share any more details yet. Now, this is a situation that, to be completely honest, should not surprise that many people, but I know it's going to anyway, because when you see a headline that says Biomutant PlayStation 5 only 1080p due to technical issues or reasons, yeah, it's not a good look, and I'm not going to sit here and say that it's a good look. Even as a PlayStation 5 owner, this is not what I want to see. But we do have to acknowledge some things. That being that we've kind of already known this for some time. We've already known that Microsoft has put much more effort and much more work into their backwards compatibility program than Sony has. We also know that it's much more of a priority for Microsoft than it is for Sony. Now, whether or not you think that's good or bad, that's ultimately subjective. But that is why we are seeing the Xbox Series X benefit so much here. And honestly, we have to give Microsoft credit here. Credit where it's due. Xbox put the extra work in when it comes to backwards compatibility, so therefore they are benefiting from that work, and I think it's great, right? Now, does this mean that the PlayStation 5 version of Biomutant, or the PS4 version playing on the PS5, is what I should say, does it mean it's really that bad? No, people are failing to understand that it is still being upscaled to 4K. It's still going to run at 60 frames per second. And on top of that, THQ Nordic made it clear that native PS5 and Xbox Series X versions will be coming at a later date. Again, we've already known that the PlayStation 5 is not as good with backwards compatibility as the Xbox Series X. So anytime we're talking about games running in backwards compatibility, we already know that it's not going to be able to compete as much with the Xbox Series X. We know that the Xbox Series X is ultimately going to have the advantage there. This is just a fact at this point. We've seen it time and time again, and that's okay for me personally anyway. I'm perfectly okay waiting for a native PS5 version of this game if it's a game that I plan on playing. I do believe that if the developers wanted to, they could probably get this game running at a higher resolution on the PS5, but from what I've heard, they're a smaller team and they're probably stretched pretty thin, so they just simply don't have the time to make it happen. but they will be able to do so with a native PS5 version. So the truth is, this is an area where the Xbox Series X does have an advantage over the PS5. Now, whether or not that's an area that matters much to you, that's for you to decide. It is worth noting that Microsoft did switch to the GDK development environment, and I have no doubt in my mind that that is one of the major changes that Microsoft made with these next-gen Xbox consoles that is allowing stuff like this to happen, to where Sony opted not to do such a thing. And so, again, it's a benefit for Xbox owners, but even if you are on PlayStation 5 and you do plan to play Biomutant, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. So yeah, let me know your thoughts about that down below. But we're going to move on from that and close out this video talking about the studio that developed Returnal, that being Housemarque, because it seems that they are talking a little bit about their future and their next project and how they want to go even bigger than they did with Returnal, which I think is exciting considering their next game will most likely be a PlayStation exclusive, considering the relationship they have with Sony. So this is coming from an interview with marketing director of Housemarque, Michael Havery, and he's talking about the future of the studio and how they just want to go bigger. So he says, yes, we've been working on 2 projects previously, and now with Returnal, we have of course only 1 project. It's hard to say if we will continue with 1 or 2 projects in the future, but the idea of us now being able to establish ourselves with Returnal will be defining the future type of titles we want to make. The idea is that we now want to show we're not just a resogun studio. We can do all kinds of things. And from our studio's perspective, that means that we want to go for these bigger types of experiences. Michael Havery doesn't completely rule out the idea of Housemarque returning to the smaller style of titles it has made in the past, but for now, it really wants to grow in stature off the back of Returnal. Now, we still love arcade, we still love smaller games as well. Who knows, maybe 26 years in the future, we'll do more of that as well. But that really depends on how successful we are able to build ourselves with the types of experiences that Returnal now is representing. So this article continues by saying sales of Returnal will have a large impact on whether that happens or not. And in that field, there are reasons to be both somewhat worried and somewhat hopeful. As far as physical sales are concerned, the PS5 roguelike got off to a slow start in the UK sales charts and has recently slipped as low as 26th place. It's doing better on the digital PlayStation Store, however. The sales chart for April 2021 puts Returnal in 3rd across the USA and Canada and 4th in Europe. And so that was also after just 1 day on the market. That's very important to understand. Now, from where I'm sitting, I think Returnal is clearly a big success for Housemarque and Sony. I think that it being a critical success is very important to both Sony and Housemarque, and I have no doubt that it sold really well. On top of that, it has not been put on sale yet, and it will be interesting to see when or if it does get put on sale. I think that that will be a very good indicator of, you know, how rapidly sales have slowed down for the game. If it doesn't go on sale anytime soon, I think it's safe to say it definitely sold very well. But I have no doubt that Sony would want to continue their partnership with Housemarque, and it's really great to hear that they want to continue to build off of Returnal and make an even bigger and even better game. I'm still currently in the process of trying to complete Returnal. I am slowly but surely making my way through the game, and I just can't help but notice how addicting this game is to play and just how amazing it feels to play. And trying to uncover the story, I'm very much excited for whatever they do next, and I love the fact that they're going to continue to go even bigger. So that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. Again, leave it a like if you did. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.